Alien is a classic horror sci-fi for a reason. It poses the question, what if humans met alien life, but instead of the friendly little green men from Mars, its biology was disturbing, its physicality was powerful and threatening, and its behaviour was malevolent and violent. As we talked about earlier in this episode, qualities of super strength and danger are typically male-coded, so the initial interpretation of the xenomorph is masculinity and threat. This metaphor continues with the face-hugger reproductive form, chest-burster infant form, and skin-puncher attacking form. The alien creature literally penetrates flesh and orifices. I'm sure I don't need to spell out what we're referring to here. And in case the metaphor wasn't quite clear enough, the alien even has a very interesting shaped head. It's interesting that the protagonist in this movie that has to defend against and fight the xenomorph is a human female. Though Ripley was originally written as a male character, in the casting process Sigourney Weaver impressed, though the character of Ripley was tweaked to fit her femaleness and provide some eye candy for the men watching. The alien threatens Ripley not just physically, but also sexually, and this has its basis in history. Humans have been colonising each other for millennia, frequently using physical and sexual violence as a means of control and abuse. So this coding directly plays into our shared histories and fears. Fears of otherness. Alien abductions are frequently reported, including violations against the human body, experimentation, impregnation, and probing. There is an innate fear and horror in all of us of our bodily agency being under threat. The xenomorph isn't fully male-coded, however. Its reproduction cycle appears to involve laying and hatching eggs, usually a female animal's responsibility, though exceptions to this do include animals like the seahorse, and it is no coincidence that the xenomorph has similar aquatic elements to its biology, dripping with moisture, limbs that flex and bend as if tentacles, and shiny, smooth, slippery skin reminiscent of a jellyfish or a shark. It is simultaneously male and female, threatening and nurturing, warrior and mother, smooth and sharp, curved and angled. Back to Ripley now. Though female in her biology and gender identity, she is a heavily queer-coded character. She wields guns whilst wearing skimpy underwear, displays fear but also significant bravery, is logical and pragmatic yet also deeply emotional. She mirrors the xenomorph whilst also being its direct opposite, both characters embodying stereotypes of masculinity and femininity. Xenomorph as villain, and Ripley as hero. We won't get into detailed analysis of other movies in the franchise here, but suffice to say that the gendered coding of both Xenomorph and Ripley continues further, and to its logical conclusion. The gender of all the crew members is interesting, as they were all conceived of as interchangeable for men or women. Of course, being a movie written by men, there is an inherent male bias. However, most characters do display elements of both traditional masculinity and traditional femininity. There's a queer android here too, which is fitting given the theme of this episode. Ash initially seems to be a human male, though he's more stuffy English analytical butler than macho American warrior, instantly codifying him as queer. He is revealed to be a corporate plant, his mission to find and retrieve the alien for study back on Earth, no matter the consequences for the human crew. When he is confronted, Ash attempts to kill Ripley, who is then defended by a male crew member. In the process, Ash is damaged and spills viscous white fluid instead of blood, his voice becoming robotic, and wires visible under his fake skin. It's really smacking us over the head here with queer allegory, concealed identity, presentation as fitting in, ulterior motive, and Ash's blood is more like a certain other fluid than actual human blood. And this particular shot, where it covers his face while his mouth remains open and his eyes closed, before he then spits out some of this fluid, I don't think I need to spell out what this implies. You can imagine for yourself. But it's pretty clear that we are meant to read him as a version of a homosexual man, a coding that is made even clearer as he professes admiration for the male-coded creature. There's got to be a way of killing it, the crew says. You can't, says Ash. The creature, a physical manifestation of queerness, cannot be destroyed. Perfect organism, he continues. And finally, most tellingly, he describes the xenomorph as a survivor, unclouded by conscience, remorse, or delusions of morality. As a queer-coded being, it is free from the rules and morals of humanity, which is probably why Ash considers it a perfect organism. He himself is not perfect, being a human construct and therefore tainted by human fears and insecurities around gender and identity. He is also synthetic, not an organism like the xenomorph. He wishes to be like this alien creature. If this scene wasn't already blatant enough about its queer coding, before the crew attempt to kill the gay android, the camera gives us a close-up glimpse of the badge on Ripley's uniform, a rainbow. Okay, enough about Ripley, Ash and the xenomorph. These are the most obvious examples of queerness in the movie, but other examples exist. Firstly, the ship itself, whose identity is blurred as an AI fully integrated and in control of the vessel. Referred to as Mother, which aligns to the traditional convention of gendering a vessel as female for its purpose to carry, protect and sustain its human cargo, but specifically given a caregiver name. Barbara Creed, in her book The Monstrous Feminine, Film, Feminism and Psychoanalysis, cites that the crew are awoken by a figure dubbed Mother in a womb-like room without a father figure, and with the comprehensive directive to provide life support. She is, quite literally, their mother. However, the name Mother is actually a nickname. The computer's actual designation is MUTHUR 6000, and whilst it is true that she is there to provide life support, as Ash alludes to, her actual mission is the life support for the alien creature, not the humans she carries. The ship itself isn't depicted as a traditional mother figure, warm, cosy, hospitable and soft. Instead, it's industrial, angular, dirty and dark. It feels more like the interior of a factory or an engine than a home or a womb, and yet it functions as both. Finally, of course, the narrative elements of the movie, a story about humans on a voyage of discovery who encounter a strange and violent being, dealing with their own crises of identity and threat along the way. It's a very queer-coded plot. And the movie doesn't actually need you to understand these. Instead, it invites the audience to observe and to experience the various depictions of otherness, which can be both threatening and empowering. When I first watched Alien, I was probably about 17, and it was a terrifying movie for me back then, particularly for the body horror, but the queer coding was not lost on me. Ripley's strength as a masculine female was oddly reassuring to me as a young person struggling to work out their gender identity. Her character showed me that it was possible to exist with elements of both maleness and femaleness, and that for her and for those around her, actually neither of those identities really mattered. She was simply Ripley, and aside from the elements of fan service present in the movie with the male gaze of both the camera and the xenomorph focusing on Ripley's body and underwear, her gender and biology are largely irrelevant in the movie, at least in the first one. Her face glows, though not really enhanced by makeup, just with perspiration and adrenaline. She wears the same baggy jumpsuit uniform as her male colleagues, and she wields guns and flamethrowers as easily as a pencil. She is afraid but bold, at once protective and aggressive, seeking to destroy the creature, not merely defend against it. She is willing to sacrifice herself, her ship and her crew in an attempt to eliminate the possibility of this alien species harming the rest of humanity. And she is depicted as smart, resourceful, rational, and, thanks to her ability, is ultimately the lone survivor of her crew. Ripley showed me that there were other ways to be than stereotypically male or female, and that biology and gender expression didn't really matter or change who you fundamentally were. Here was a woman being presented as fully woman, and at the same time not really woman at all. This was comforting to me to see a different type of representation, and best of all, it was actually completely immaterial to the plot of the movie and mostly incidental to the rest of the characters in the movie. It's not Ripley that gets attacked by the facehugger alien, it's a male character, Kane. Ripley isn't the victim in this movie. She's not a damsel in distress, and she doesn't need rescuing. She's a badass, taking action in the chaos, and she manages to outwit and survive both the alien and the rest of her crew. So yes, in case you ever doubted it, Alien is a very queer-coded movie. Although now over 40 years old and officially a retro classic, it still has plenty to say about gender stereotypes and roles, and has a richness of subtext that I've only scraped the surface of here today. But it's not just a queer film, it's objectively a great film. Although elements of it haven't aged so well, the unnecessary sexualization of Ripley and let's not talk about Ash's heavy-handed assault of her as two examples, it was revolutionary for its time, with a gender-blind and race-blind cast. And it still has influence on sci-fi today. The Alien universe and story continue to expand, and it has been referenced in everything from Star Trek to Doctor Who, Rick and Morty to inspiring aliens in the video game Half-Life. And its most notable legacy is inspiring both visual and narrative elements of the popular game series Halo. And as a piece of art, it is a beautiful thing. It is atmospheric, claustrophobic and grungy, reflecting the reality of being trapped in a metal box in space. The sound and music reference both the familiar, with classical orchestral instrumentation, and the exotic, with digitally created sounds and synthesizers. Truly, I think it is one of the best movies ever made. It was given a rank of 3rd place by Time Out magazine in their top 100 sci-fi movies, and I'm inclined to agree. It is fairly near the top of the list for me, although I can think of more than 2 movies I would consider better. One of them is actually the sequel to Alien, Aliens, which delves more into the complexities of the characters and enhances the action. So for that reason, I think I'm going to bump this to number 5 on my list, and I'll have to think really carefully about what numbers 1 to 4 would be. But what do you think? I'd love to hear your interpretations of Alien. Do the characters of Ripley, Ash, and even the Xenomorph resonate with you? Do you find their otherness intimidating, discomforting, or empowering? And if you were on that ship with the Xenomorph, would you make it out alive? Because I can tell you for a fact, I would not. Drop me a comment below with your take, or point out anything I've missed or that you disagree with.